Welcome everyone to another episode of Retro Revival, where your host Iggy is going to do the FRAM mod on a Sega Saturn Model 1. So let me go grab some coffee, zip out this motherboard, get you zoomed in, and let's get the show started. Alright, so we got a zipped out Sega Saturn motherboard here. In this particular case, this motherboard is a VA 0.8. Definitely a Model 1 motherboard, one of the first versions that Sega produced. And so, and in fact, this motherboard is part of the Sega Saturn that I'm going to be sending to Eric. So this is his system that we're working on, and so I've done a lot of work to it already. I've cleaned it inside out. I've done the recap of all the electrolytic capacitors. In fact, I had to do a repair on these two capacitors here because there was actually some electrolytic capacitor leakage, some fluid that got into underneath the capacitors and started eating away at the traces. So yeah, that's working now, and we also put in a new laser, and we calibrated that CD drive to utilize that new laser. So this thing runs like a dream. The last thing that we want to do is we want to do the FRAM mod. And so the FRAM mod, what it does is it addresses the Achilles heel of the Sega Saturn. And what that Achilles heel is that it has to do with this coin battery here. And so all your save data that's on the system is stored in the Sega Saturn memory. And the moment that this battery dies or you take the battery out, you lose all those save games. And that's kind of annoying because especially you put a lot of time into some of the games, you know, RPGs or anything, that those are saves that you don't want to lose. And so the FRAM mod kind of addresses that. And so yeah, we're going to be doing the FRAM mod to this motherboard. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually look for where it is on the motherboard. And it's typically if you look for the label on the motherboard, it's designated as IC8. And so if you look at that, that will typically be the memory chip that you need to work on. And so I already found it ahead of time. It is right here in this area. And how I also can verify too is reading the model number on this chip. So this particular chip, I think, let me read here. It is a UM62257M. And so just based on the community, modding community, and all the documents about the Sega Saturn, this is the chip that we want to work on. And so what we're going to do is we can approach this in two ways. All right, so it's all, what way you choose is dependent on the uniqueness of your motherboard. And the reason why I say that is because when Sega produced later versions of the Sega Saturn, one of the techniques that they use to keep the chips in place is that they use epoxy. And they put epoxy underneath these chips and allow them to solder them easily and mass produce them, you know, all that jazz. And so that becomes kind of like a sticking point to the mod, because if you're not experienced removing this chip using hot air reflow techniques, you can rip the traces and pads that are underneath this chip, including the legs of this chip here too. You can do extra damage, and what becomes a simple mod becomes just a big headache, and that's something that you don't want to do. And so we got lucky here with this particular motherboard version. They didn't use epoxy, so I have desoldering this chip and putting the FRAM chip as an available option. And there's also another option if you don't want to desolder your system memory chip. And so there's a solution that was created by another modder. His name is Zaxor, and he created this Flux cable. Let's see if I can bring it into view here, but it's this guy right here. And what makes this easy is that you don't have to worry about desoldering the SRAM chip from the motherboard. And how it works is that you take your new FRAM module, you solder on top of your Flux cable, and then you position it correctly onto the existing system memory chip, and you just solder in place right on top. But the issue that as you probably can notice here, is that the Flux cable here is kind of on the BIOS here. So this is the BIOS chip right here. And so the issue here is that I have a Flux cable that I can't really install here because of that. And so that's kind of annoying because I really wanted to use this Flux cable. So each motherboard, the SRAM chip is going to be located differently. And so you'll be able to use this cable. In my case, I don't think it's going to be viable. Because like, I mean, yeah, I could like modify this cable to actually make it work, but I'm not going to do that because for one, for this motherboard version, we don't have epoxy, so hot air reflow techniques to desolder the memory chip is going to be easier, and so I'm going to do that. And so we're going to go ahead and get our hot air reflow station warmed up, and we'll go ahead and I'll walk you through the process on how to unsolder this chip. What we're going to first do is we're actually going to protect the components that are around the system memory chip that we want to desolder. And so we're going to do that using Kapton tape. So the Kapton tape is going to help keep the components in place so they don't fly off the motherboard. And that's something that you definitely don't want happen when you're doing some hot air reflow work here. And also it's going to deflect some of that heat too, so that the components don't warm as much. And so I'm going to lay some tape here on this BIOS chip here, and then across these two capacitors here, so we can protect those components and make sure that they don't fly away. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. So I'm going to take some of this tape. So this is what it looks like. It's just this kind of like yellowish looking tape here, and we're going to see if we can get that tape on there. Okay, looks nice. I'm going to put one more layer on top of the BIOS here. Okay, perfect. And then we're going to put some tape here on the right hand side, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so it'll get it situated here. Looks like a little bit too close, and then I'm going to just layer another one right on top. Okay. All right, awesome. All right, so the strategy with using hot air reflow work, using the hot air reflow station, is what you want to do is you want to take the hot air and you want to go kind of above a few inches from where you're working at. You want to get that that board preheated, and so we're going to preheat the board. We're going to do that for around 30 seconds or so, and then we're going to come a little bit closer, and then we're going to go around the perimeter of the chip, still maybe an inch or two above the chip, and we're just going to go a circle, making sure that we're not staying in one place for too long. We're just going to keep going in circles and keep doing that, and we're going to do that for about, I would say about 30 seconds to a minute-ish, and then I'm going to come in closer and I'm going to concentrate on the legs of the chip itself. And you'll see me grab or use my tweezers here. And what I'm going to do is I want to gently nudge nudge the chip. What you want to do is you don't want to force the process. You don't want to force pushing the chip. It should just slide off the motherboard here, and you'll see that I'll just gently nudge it, and you know that the chip is ready to come off the motherboard. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. We'll come here, a few inches. I'm just gonna give it some heat here. Give it some heat, give it some love to the motherboard. Make sure it's not cold, it's warm and fuzzy. Okay, so we're gonna do that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start getting a little bit closer. We're gonna go ahead and just circle the perimeter of the chip, and we just want to just get the legs here, just outside the perimeter chip. We're gonna go in little circles, not staying in any area too long. You just want to keep moving. That's the key to working this here. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to start concentrating here on the sides here. A little bit closer. And I'm going to just kind of put my tweezers in position here. So when I'm ready. Okay, I'm just gently nudging it. I am not pushing it whatsoever. By the way, my hot air reflow station's set at 360. We're at 4.5 out of 8 for airflow. And I apologize if this is in the way. I'm just trying to make sure that we got enough heat distributing around the chip here. Still not ready yet. Just give it some time. Give it time. Don't rush the process. All right, so you see now, it's like it moved, and so it looked like it resoldered. So I'm just gonna make sure. There we go. It came right off. There it is. That's how you do it. Okay. Okay. So you can take a look here. I'll zoom in for you guys here so we can show you the FRAM install here. But I'm gonna show you here like how the traces are not ripped or anything. Definitely no epoxy. So so yeah, this is what it looks like when you desolder it. The next step here is once I get you guys zoomed in, I'm going to go ahead and just wick up some of this extra solder so that the chip lays flat, the new FRAM chip. And so we're going to do that here once I get you all zoomed in. All right. Okay, got you guys zoomed in, and so here's the result of our desolder here. The pads on the motherboard look great. What we're going to do is we're actually going to get rid of and wick away some of that excess solder. We're going to do that using some soldering wick. I have some soldering wick here. Put that into view. It's just some wire that we use to kind of wick up all that solder here. And we're actually using some no clean flux. Listen, guys, for all you people that don't use Flux, use Flux. This Flux is like the best thing that you can do for soldering components. For one, it reduces oxidation to whatever you're soldering to, but also it gives you that nice, good, clean connection, nice, good solder joints. I mean, that's what you were looking for when you're doing modding and stuff like that. Is you're wanting to present the best work that you can and make sure that's reliable for your customers. And so so use Flux, guys. I use no clean Flux, so we're gonna actually dab a little bit here. I'm gonna do it on both sides here. All right. And I'm just gonna take my solder wick here and my soldering iron. So my soldering iron is set to 340 degrees Celsius. I do everything in degrees Celsius because of my prior life in the United States Army as a calibrator. So we did everything in the metric system. So I'm used to the old Celsius measurement. So all right, what we want to do is we're going to put our soldering iron on top of the wick, and we're just going to glide over it. We're not going to press down or anything. We're just going to let it do its process, and you're going to start seeing the solder come off those pads, and you'll start to see the solder on top. Let me get around this BIOS chip here, but yeah. You can start to see the pads are looking great, looking marvelous right now. Ready for that FRAM chip. Okay, so you can see a little bit of solder that got sucked up onto the wick here. I'm actually gonna just go over it one more time. One more time. Just glide over it. We're not pressing down. We're not causing any undue stress to those soldering pads. Okay. Move to a new area on the wick, and we're going to do the other side. Okay, looks like I probably need some more Flux. Guys, Flux is your secret weapon. If you don't use it, you're just creating more troubles for whatever you're doing soldering. It's essential. It always amazes me that when people don't use it, and then you look at their work and it's just like, oh my gosh, that solder joint, I don't know if that's legitly good or whatever. But I mean, that's how you learn, right, guys? Okay, so yeah, that looks great. We got all that excess solder up, and we can see the pads more. I'm gonna actually clean up the work area here with some alcohol using a toothbrush and some Kim wipes. And we're gonna just get our toothbrush saturated with alcohol. I'm just gonna go over here, give it a good clean. Oh yeah, those things look beautiful, like little stars shining brightly. Okay, I'm gonna use a Kim wipe to actually wipe up the excess alcohol and the no clean flux. It's very ironic they call it no clean flux when you have to kind of clean it up, because it does leave a white residue on the board here. But yeah, that looks immaculate. Okay, since we got the solder pads all cleaned up on the motherboard, we're gonna have to turn our attention to the FRAM chip. We're gonna do a couple of things to it. So I'm gonna put the FRAM chip in view here. Here it is. Let me twist it here so we can kind of see the model number and all that good stuff. And so what we have to do before we solder this chip in is we have to lift pins 22 and 28. And so how you know what pin is what is if you look over here on the chip, you'll see a dimple here, and sometimes you might see a dot here. They do a dot that automatically should tell you that's pin 1, which is right here. But if it doesn't have a dot, just orient the chip so that the dimple is facing on top, and the pin immediate to the left of that will be pin 1. And so this chip has the exact same footprint as the old SRAM chip. It's a 28-pin chip also. So there's 14 pins here and 14 pins on the other side. And how you count the pins here is, so you find pin 1 and you go down to the end of the chip, and then you go counterclockwise back up here. So this pin right here will be pin 15, and then I'm going to count up until you hit pin 28 right here. So what we need to find is pin 22 and pin 28, and I'm going to use a tool. See if I can get it into view here. So this tool here will help me lift up the pins uniformly so we don't lift them up crooked. And so I'm going to do that off camera now. So I have the pins lifted. Let me bring the FRAM chip into view. All right, and so we have pin 22 lifted and pin 28. All right, and so lift that. I'm going to show you a side view, what that looks like. Okay, see, it's been lifted. Not too high, but not too low either. So just the right amount. Okay, and so the next step is we're going to take this chip and we're going to solder it onto the motherboard here. The reason why we have those 2 pins lifted is we're going to connect a wire to a 5-volt source and another wire to the ground. The reason why we don't want to solder those pins that I lifted to the motherboard pads that we have here is because remember, those pads are being powered by that coin battery, and so we don't want that. And so part of the FRAM mod is you need to connect a 5-volt source, and we want to have a good reference to that using the ground of the motherboard. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so we're ready to solder the FRAM chip onto the motherboard. The next thing that we're going to need to do is make sure we got the correct orientation of the chip. So we're looking at pin 1 of the motherboard here. See this triangle indicator? That's pin 1 for the chip. Is the dimple here, so we got correct orientation. And so what we're going to do is just kind of place it onto the motherboard here. And so by looking at this, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of gauge and get good alignment on both sides. And the technique here is that we're going to tack a pin. It could be any pin. I usually go for the corner pins here. Just tack it to the motherboard, and then we can manipulate the chip just a little bit further for that minute adjustments that we need, and then we'll tack the opposite corner pin. So I think I'm going to work with the bottom right-hand corner pin here, and so let me see if we can get some alignment here. I'm going to get some flux on that pin there. Load up my soldering iron with some solder. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to be patient, and we're going to see if we can align both sides of the chip. I know it's kind of hard to see with my hand in the way, so I'm just going to maybe just concentrate on the right hand side here. Move this to the side here so I can see the camera. Okay. I like that. Might be able to manipulate just a little bit more. Like so. And so I got that bottom right hand corner tacked in. This enables me to kind of manipulate the chip a little bit more and just check the overall alignment of the chip itself. And if I'm happy with it, I can go ahead into this opposite corner and I'll just tack it down that way. So I'm going to do that real quick. Okay, I like that alignment. I'm going to go ahead and get some flux on that upper left-hand corner pin. I'm holding the chip down. Looks like I might have just shifted just a tad. Okay, I think that's a good alignment there. So I'm going to come in here and just tack this down. Okay, doesn't have to be beautiful, but now we can just take a look at the alignment of the chip. Looks good. I like the alignment, and so what we can now do is focus on one side, and we can just start soldering away. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna start. I'll start on this right side here since we got it going on. So I'm gonna put some flux here. Okay, load up my soldering iron. Okay, and I'm going to start at the top here. Remember, the pin 28 and pin 22 are not soldered, so we are going to avoid those pins. Okay. Okay, doesn't have to be beautiful at the moment. We just want to make sure we just got some solder on those pins. Okay. All right, so now we're going to beautify it. Just going to load my soldering tip. A little more solder, just a tad. Not too much, not too little. And I'm just going to focus, making sure that every single pin except pin 22 and 28 is soldered to the motherboard. Okay. Now let's just do another pass here. Look at the camera, see that everything is happy. Okay, that looks good. Okay, great. All right, so we're gonna go to the other side. I'm gonna flip this motherboard here. I'm gonna do that real quick. I'm gonna get it into view. Here it is. All right. Let's get this side soldered in. Okay, and if you do see a bridge, don't fret. Just put some additional flux in the area that you're working with. Clean your soldering tip from any additional soldering or solder that you have on the tip, and the moment that you go over it, it should come undone. Okay, I'm gonna just go over it one more time. Actually, get some more flux here. This solder joint's looking beautiful. Okay, well, that looks good. Let me clean it up. A little bit of alcohol, 99% alcohol. Some paper on here to kind of soak that up. When you're doing this, just make sure that you're not pressing too hard because you might be bending those lifted pins up in different directions, and we don't want that. So careful while you clean. Okay. All right, what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to take a look at this under the microscope, and I want to make sure all the pins are good and fix any pins that I think needs to be fixed, and then we'll proceed with the next step. So give me a few and I'll be right back. Okay, so we're ready for the final step. So we have to connect two wires to the motherboard, one to source from ground and one to source from 5 volts to the FRAM chip. So what we're going to do is we're going to source our 5 volts. It looks like the closest 5 volts is from the BIOS chip here on this pin. So I'm going to source 5 volts here, connect it to pin 28. And over here, this unpopulated capacitor spot here, this pad right here on this side is actually connected to ground, so we can run a wire to pin 22. So that's what we're going to do now. Let me go ahead and get my soldering iron prepped up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to prep up this pin. Gonna put some flux on there, and we're gonna add some solder to it, give it a nice blob for the wire to attach to. Okay, and then we're gonna do the exact same thing for the ground spot right here. So we'll do that, give it a nice blob of solder. We're also going to do the same for the pins that are lifted, 22 and 28. Okay. Great. Okay, what I'm going to do for the lifted pins, I'm actually going to sneak a piece of Kapton tape underneath it, just to prevent any shorts from happening from the lifted pins. And let me go ahead and do that now. I like to do that. Some people don't do it, but I just like to prevent any accidents from happening. So it's almost there. Okay. Okay, great. Great. So this also allows me to see the pins a lot better when I'm soldering to them. So, okay. Next, we're going to solder some wires. I'm going to start with the 5-volt wire. I'm going to use a 26 gauge wire for each connection here. So I'm gonna start. I have a red wire color here. So let me find that real quick. Okay, with a Kapton tape in place, what I'm going to do is work with the 5-volt wire. So I think I'm just going to start with soldering it to the IC chip. So I'm going to go ahead and try to do that while not being in the way. Maybe I'll use some tweezers here. Maybe that will help. Okay, actually let me get some clean Flux. It's hard when you don't have many hands. All right, so I'm gonna maneuver this way and see if I can. There we go. That is a nice solid joint right there. Good. Okay. Now we're going to look at see how much wire we need for this this pin here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to just come down this way and then loop back around. So probably right there. Okay, great. All right. Let me strip the end of this. And I apologize. I'm in a I don't have much cable to work with, so. A little bit more. There we go. Great. Okay, so now we just gotta twist this and tin it. Okay, I'm gonna put some flux on that. Great. All right, now we're ready to solder to the chip here. So I'm just gonna put some no clean on both sides here and load up my solder tip with some solder and try to manipulate this wire so that we can make a connection. So let me try that real quick. In fact, what I'll do is I'll flip the motherboard down. It'll be a lot easier. Okay, there we go. Okay. Okay, great. Let's see if we can get that connected. Give it a little shake. Oh, perfect. Perfecto. And I'm going to try to see if I could just manipulate this cable to be more down in the between the chips. Okay, great. All right. So we might have to move this cable just a tad to get the ground cable connected. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. And there we go. All right. Okay, so we're gonna do a black cable for ground. So let's do that real quick. Also using 28 gauge wire. I've already prepped and tinned one side. I'm just gonna kind of guesstimate on the size here. So we're gonna probably run a cable to, let's say maybe right there. Really small cable. Might have to use some wire cutters. Traditional kind. Or wire strippers, I should say. And this is a 28 gauge, so there we go. Okay, I'm just going to tin both ends of the wire off camera. Makes it easier. Now comes the hard part, and that is to manipulate this cable in such a way that it can be maneuvered to where we need to be. Okay, so I think I'm gonna solder the ground on the motherboard here. I might have to do some left-handed soldering here, but let's get some flux going here. And since we got a solder blob, we're just gonna go ahead and use that. Not quite there. Reapply some flux. Let's try to redo that again. It's such a hard, confined space. I might have to load up my solder iron. All right, perfect. Okay, that's in, and then we just gotta attach it to the chip and we're done. So we're gonna put some flux on both sides there, and we're gonna try this. Oh, just came undone. I can't tell if it's soldered correctly, so I'm going to have to go over it again. Okay, there we go. I think it's good to go. Okay, I'm going to look at the connections here off camera, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put everything back together, and the moment of truth, see if the FRAM mod is going to do what it's supposed to do, and we'll see you in a little bit. All right, it is the moment of truth. We have the Sega Saturn all put together, powered on, and we are in the system memory menu. I have a test file that I did off camera, and we're going to use that as a test. And one of the other things I want to show you too is that we don't have the coin battery installed in the coin battery slot, so this is a good test. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and power off the Sega Saturn. Do that now. And I'm also going to unplug the cable, power cable here for a few seconds. Okay, I'm going to plug it back in, power back on. Okay, the one thing to note here is because we don't have the coin battery installed, you're going to be constantly nagged by these set language and set clock screens. And so my suggestion for you is to install the coin battery so that you don't have to keep um, having to address these screens every time you boot your Sega Saturn. And because the FRAM chip is isolated from the battery, you can safely have it installed. So that's my suggestion. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go past these screens here. And I'm going to go back into the system memory menu to take a look to see if our test save is still there. All right, there we go. It's still there. So the FRAM mod has been successful. So yeah, I'm ready to pack up the Sega Saturn, ship it to Eric, and hopefully he enjoys this console. But yeah, if you enjoy the content that was presented, then please like or subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate it if you do. And if you have any questions or comments, please post them below in the comment section. Otherwise, you guys have a great day. Catch you next time.